Hi everyone, I'm Stefanie Kulberg. I am the Vice President of Marketing at LaunchPad Lab, and here with me today is Ryan Francis. He is the President and Partner here at LaunchPad Lab, and we are here to talk about headless agents. It is an interesting topic that we're learning a little bit more about, where I know many have heard a lot about AI agents to date. One aspect that sort of ramps this up and takes it a level further is the concept of headless agents. And we are here to unpack that with you today. So thank you first, Ryan, for joining us. Just jumping right into the deep end of the pool here, I'd love to just have you start by walking us through what is digital labor? How can headless agents help businesses gain a competitive edge?
Yeah. So as we think about the idea of digital labor, I think you start with like what it really is digital labor. And it's basically replicating what humans do, but instead of humans doing it, we have AI doing it. So what are all the different things that humans are doing within an organization to, service their customers? What are the different experiences that customers are engaging in where an agent could be embedded? When we think about like headless agents, basically it's the idea of like using AgentForce, but not AgentForce's like out of the box chat UI. So it's like, how do you use the power of that AgentForce backend to have agents reasoning and using that whole Atlas reasoning engine to take the right series of action based on a request? Why that's important is the out of the box chat that AgentForce provides is really useful for like dropping it into a website for like a service use case. But if you want to start to get into operational use cases where you have employees who maybe are working in Slack, or you have work that needs to get done on a daily basis, but you don't want people to have to go in and chat with this AI to get it done. You want it to just happen. These are situations where you don't want to use that out of the box UI chat experience to trigger the agent. You want to have the agent be able to operate in different domains or in different interfaces. You might also want to build your own proprietary UI that gives your brand a differentiating product to release into the market that's maybe trained and enabled around your proprietary content with obviously access to your proprietary CRM data. As we think about like headless agents, like the business value that it can add is really in going beyond some of the more like kind of simplified AI use cases like service agents, great, but it's kind of like a just the tip of the spear of what you can really do with these AI agents. But you have to move beyond just like a out of the box service agent UI and into these like headless use cases.
How does it impact like revenue, ROI, bottom line?
Yeah, so if you can imagine that most companies built their human teams before this cheap AI intelligence was available, right? So now they have really if they took a hard look, they have a lot of waste. They have a lot of human energy going towards things that AI energy should be actually doing to optimize their cost structure. So, in order to fully realize the potential of their organization, they should be really targeting like how can we get 50% of the stuff that we're doing digitally to be handled by AI. So, when you think about all the different things that teams are doing in a digital context, there's a lot of work happening there. You have, salespeople who are doing research on accounts, they're creating proposals. You have marketing teams creating content. They're doing like account-based marketing, account research, and targeting. You have operations teams that are, or service teams that are doing a ton behind the scenes to service their clients and customers that could be automated through AI agents. You have data analysts that could actually just be AI agents doing that analytical work for you. So there's so many things that could be automated inside of companies using headless agents. I think you're really looking at if you were to take your human-based labor cost and multiply that by 50%, that's like the value that you could potentially derive by fully embracing headless AI agents. It can be a huge number. There's just kind of like an infinite number of like opportunities for it. But yeah, it really comes down to augmenting human teams and driving more margin in the business.
What makes this sort of different from the out of the box options? I want to like drill into that a little bit more.
I think one way to frame it too is like when you think about where we're at right now with just like the broader landscape, Just like when the internet came out back in like the 80s, generative AI coming out now is that type of a tectonic seismic shift in technology capability. The internet brought the ability to instantly communicate, and now we have AI bringing the ability to have instant intelligence and free and close to free, cheap intelligence. And so with that raw capability comes major disruption in every industry and becomes, you know, there are going to be winners and there are going to be losers as a result of that. The winners are going to be the companies who find ways to transform and transform their secret sauce to be an AI first secret sauce, to find ways where AI is actually part of the reason why they're differentiated. It's not let's just buy an off the shelf product and kind of use AI. It's hey, let's actually reimagine the way our business operates with AI embedded throughout every part of our labor, from marketing to sales to delivery, to service to delivery to product. You're thinking about how does the entire business become an AI first business? And that's really where I think you go beyond just buying off the shelf stuff and trying to stitch it all together. And you go into how do you do some more proprietary development with headless agents. The proprietary side is like embedding your kind of unique direction for how those agents should behave and what their process looks like and when they should do what. It's really bringing that kind of whatever your secret sauce is as a business, you're like defining that into your agentic layer through more custom development of that.
Well, and it's also, I mean, I think the other thing that's kind of interesting about it, which we've talked about in the past, is it's scalable.
Totally scalable, right? Like you can handle burst demand, right? So if you have situations where you have high burst demand, like from a human team standpoint, it's really hard to grow a human labor pool and then wind it back down. And as you think about scale, it's not just about scaling the ability to handle that demand, but it's also about scaling your margins over time. As you grow your top line, how do you make sure that you're creating economies of scale? Like if you think about it conceptually, if you have a team of two people, your organization only has two people, finding a bunch of AI wins might help you alleviate hiring new people, but it's not going to necessarily bring bottom line benefit right away. But if you have a company of 1,000 people and you find the opportunity to offload 50% of what your organization is doing with AI, you just found 500 people worth of like value of profit, right? And then as you scale that, as you grow, and that 1,000 person becomes 1,500, becomes 2,000, the value of what you did to create that scalability just keeps going up. You're creating more and more margin in the business by like creating digital efficiency.
As I'm listening to you talk through this, it's making me think of the work that we did at Prosci. I'd love to have you share that story with the people that are listening today so they can sort of get a sense of how this can be applied in a real world scenario and really be incredibly impactful for an organization.
The story I would tell for ProSci here is like, look, ProSci, they understand what change means. They're a change management company. They are responsible for educating companies across the globe on how to handle change. And so when they see this AI situation, they understand the change that it means for their own business. They understand that their customers who go to ProSci to become experts in managing change, they understand that those customers might go to a new startup that's providing an AI first experience around getting coached on change management projects. And so ProSci thought, hey, instead of us getting disrupted by another startup, we'll build our AI coach. So they built Kaiya, which is their AI chat GPT, if you will, for change management. It's been trained on thousands of pieces of proprietary content that only ProSci has about how to execute change management really well within, complex enterprise organizations. They're finding that their customers are driving 75% efficiency in their workflows by using Kaiya versus doing this stuff kind of on their own or even with like other AI systems that don't have that proprietary knowledge. So it's just an example of where an out of the box AI product would not have helped ProSci address their root core problem, which was how do we continue to stay differentiated in an AI era? But they had to build a proprietary AI experience in order to solve that problem.
Applying this concept more broadly for something that's relatable for people just on a more basic level. I'd love to hear about how just a more general use case that would be relevant to everyone. For example, like looking at the internet, everybody uses the internet. Can you walk me through a circumstance where you can think of how this headless agent could be applied and really meaningful in a scenario like that?
I think a good example would be where you're in the digital intake process of an internet company. You're interested in getting an internet plan. I'm coming up with this on the fly here. My thought is like you could have an experience on the website where you're an agent is asking you some questions. Like I'm picturing basically a conversational quoting experience. I'm telling them about what I'm trying to do. I'm giving them my address. It's just a conversational experience, but it's not just like the out of the box, like AgentForce experience. It's like, it's on the page. It's like, as I'm talking, my plan is being created on the right. I can see it come to life. And so it's going beyond just like this widget in the bottom right where I'm just like having a simple chat thing, and it's becoming more of like the experience is a conversation, and it's more than just the conversation. It's also like creating something for me on my behalf. As an internet company, that's maybe a differentiator to have something that's like more engaging and high touch, but still agentic and differentiated.
No, I like it. Having that sort of type key.
Dialogue.
Yeah, like the example I've been using lately was when we were trying to change something on an airline, ticket that we had booked, and it kept giving me prompts. I couldn't get the question that I had that wasn't within that sort of set list of prompts answered. And it was so frustrating. So in this instance, it's responding to a dialogue native, like naturally. And based on what you're sort of feeding the back end, it's going to get you the information you need. And it's also going to feed into the system so you can see on the account level in the CRM space, then the service rep can respond to me, et cetera. So it's kind of like it's the, front and back end of that experience too.
Like that's a great example of like, okay, how do you actually agentify that experience for the customer, right? Like customer's going to come in, they're going to have a number of different issues. One of them is that they might want to change their flight. To agentify that experience, you have to give the agent the ability to look up that customer, to see what flights that customer has coming up, to then be able to like confirm which flight the customer is trying to change, to be able to understand why they need to change it, like what, like in terms of like where they want to change it to. They want to fly out at a different day, or they need to go to a different city, right? And so each of those things is like an action that the agent would take. So in AgentForce, they have this concept of actions, right? You build these actions. So an action could be like fetch flight, or another action could be like update flight. In an update action, you'd say, here's the current flight, here's the new flight, and then that new flight gets like stored in the database for the customer. They've registered for that flight, they have a seat, and that's in there, right? So anyway, these actions in Salesforce, you can write flows to do these, but that's not a great thing to do. Like if you're an airline and you really want to have a great agentic experience, you should actually write those actions in Heroku, because Heroku can simultaneously run an infinite number of that same action. Let's say there's 100 agents that are simultaneously trying to fetch flights or change flights. You don't want a bunch of flows running in Salesforce clogging things up. It'd be better to like fire that action in Heroku that can scale up infinitely compute wise, and then can do very complex things and go reach out to, say, in the case of the airline, they're going to have some core system. Their primary system for storing flight data is not Salesforce. It's some other system, right? And so Heroku can handle interacting with that other system in a secure, lockdown way and in an efficient way, and then feeding that back to the agent and AgentForce. So actually, that would be a situation where like Heroku would be like kind of like a headless agentic layer supporting that AgentForce, even if you are using AgentForce as the core like chat experience. So I don't know if that helps, but like think about anything where you're doing meaningful service agents, like they probably should be doing using Heroku for that
Definitely
action.
a lot to think about when you are figuring out how to build headless agents and what you can do from a business perspective that's really going to be beneficial in terms of considering and building this sort of AI agent component. Thank you, Ryan, so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Hope those of you listening got some really rich information here that you can action on. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're always happy to help. Thanks again.